Hey everybody, we're teaching SculptrVR, and this time we're going to look very closely at the paintbrush tool. This is a tool on the last one on our first row, conveniently called paintbrush, and unlike the other creating tools, this one will only modify stuff that already exists. So if I've gone through and I've actually just painted something, and I either want to change the color, or maybe paint onto its surface, or even paint inside. The paintbrush tool, not only can it change the color, but it can also change the material as well. So we've got this object here. Our paintbrush has the same thumb controls that a lot of other tools have. So the top thumb button changes your brush and the way it works. We're going to start with blend paint mode. If I have any other color or material, right now if I pull my trigger, nothing happens because I'm not on top of something that exists already. If I go to my sculpture here, when I paint through it, you can hear a little hiss like a spray paint, and I'm actually changing the color. I'm not just changing the surface. My brush is a sphere, so as I go inside, if I carve away at this sculpture, we can now see how the pink actually goes into the sculpture. It follows the sphere, so as I use the paintbrush sphere, it's changing not just the surface, but inside and through as well. So now if I crack it in half, the pink goes all the way through. The blend paintbrush, blend paint, it just converts the color that's there to your new color. If you look closely, you can see there is a little bit of a blend at that point. It's not that sharp. If I use my thumb trigger, instead of blend paint, it just says paint. Now it's more like an airbrush or spray paint. If I just move quickly, you heard the hiss, but there's very little change. If I go around in the same place, you can see how it starts to darken in. The very core, the center of your sphere, has the highest rate of change. The outer edges of the sphere has a slow rate of change. Let's grab that, give us a new surface. So I'm just going to hold in one place. So you can see how the color starts at the center and moves out. Blend paint, solid stroke. Regular paint, airbrush, build it up over time. That way you can get much more of a blended, softer edge. If you want that softer edge after the fact, we can use that other smoothing tool. It does have a blend color option that lets you actually blend colors together. And again, this is 3D, not on the surface, but all the way in. We're blending the pink with the green or whatever colors you have. Now, the brush tool not only changes color, but if I actually choose a different material on my palette here, it will change the material. So it's now the shiny metal as opposed to the matte clay. The difference being colors can blend, materials cannot blend. So that sharp edge we see here, while I could blend the green into the blue, I cannot blend the shiny metal into the clay. So you can see how I'm turning the sharp, bright blue and the greens are becoming more cyan. They're blending more. But the edge of the shiny metal part can't blend. So the paintbrush can change material. Just bear in mind you can't blend material. Now, one of the nice side effects of this type of thing, being able to paint on it without changing the architecture, changing the sculpture, is I could do something like start with a nice landscape. Let's start with a nice, smooth landscape. But now I can go into this landscape, make it a little bigger here. I'm going to change my paintbrush to a nice metallic pale blue. That's the shade I want in metallic. So now as I paint, you can see I'm not changing the architecture of the landscape, the sculpture of the landscape. I'm just changing the color, the material of what's there. Change your scale for the finer details. Change your scale for the bigger details. So we are making this river in our landscape using our lovely metallic blue, using this landscape that's already there. So the paintbrush to alter the texture, both the surface color and the surface material. This works with your glowing material as well. If I went in with just the paintbrush, it's going to change from clay to glow, from metal to glow. I have no way of blending those surfaces because they're different materials, even if I could blend the color. Undo, that looks terrible. Okay. So the paintbrush tool, changing the color and the material without changing the architecture. It is a three-dimensional tool, so if we carve our way in, it does indeed change it throughout the three-dimensionality of the surface. We can see the depth of the river just by how much you want to paint it. Two modes, blend paint versus paint. Whoops, let's get to the same material here. Paint versus blend paint. Smoothing brushes after. This is the paintbrush tool. This first row full combination gives you the main tools to make almost anything. The other tools we'll be doing in other lessons just gives you starter shapes to work with or other materials and ways to interact with your tools. Paintbrush, just to change the colors and materials, to work with all of your other blendings, and it works with any color in your palette set. If you wanted to reconnect things, we can use our eyedropper to pick up existing colors, and now we can use our paintbrush to put those colors in wherever we want. Or even use the, use the other form, so it blends in a little smoother. There we go. So build up your picture first, then go in with your paintbrush to make it look the way you want. Much better. Thanks for joining us. I hope this was helpful for you. I'm just going to do a little graffiti with my tools here. Make them smaller, please. Let us know if you have questions. We do this every week live on Twitch and archived on YouTube as well. That's a different material, darn it. You get the point. Thanks for joining us. Have fun with your SculptrVR.